When my son was born, I cried with happiness for the first time. But 3 months later, I was crying for another reason, out of fear that the family I dreamed of was falling apart right in front of my eyes. I didn't know then that the reason was much worse than ordinary fatigue, and that one day the test would destroy everything I believed in. I've always considered myself a patient person, quiet, reliable, those who will never leave, will not betray, will not leave in a difficult moment. And when our son was born, I was sure that this was a new stage. Family, responsibility, a house full of laughter. The first few weeks were great. Fatigue, yes. Sleepless nights, of course, but every time I held him in my arms, I felt like I was ready to endure anything. His little fingers, which squeezed my phalanx, brought me to delight. I sat and looked at him at night by the light of a bedside lamp and thought, how happy I am. But happiness, it's fragile, and sometimes it breaks down in silence. A month later, I began to notice the first changes in my wife. She's become something different. Twitchy, cold, as if she was constantly annoyed. I blamed everything on fatigue, because it's normal when a child is just born, but sometimes she looked like it was my fault that she was even alive. At first it was small things. She abruptly pulled her hand away when I tried to hug her in the morning. She closed her phone, although she could have left it anywhere before. She began to smile less often, but I didn't want to suspect the worst. He rejected thoughts that he was afraid to formulate himself. Even when she first went to her mother for half a day without warning, I did not see any danger in this. Even when I came back angry and tired, even though I looked like I was in a spa, I believed, yes, fatigue, yes, nerves. I wanted everything to be normal so much that I stopped noticing the obvious. One night, my son cried for a particularly long time. I was walking around the room, rocking him, humming something unintelligible, and my wife was lying on the edge of the bed, facing the wall. I said softly, "Honey, he wants to come to you. Try to take it." She jerked violently. "I'm tired." "You can handle it yourself for once, too," she said icily. I froze. "Just once?" For the last 2 weeks, I've been getting up to the baby almost always. But instead of reminding her, I just nodded and continued walking, because I was so afraid of scaring her off even more, of alienating her even more. An hour later, when my son finally fell asleep, I gently laid him down and lay down next to my wife. She was still sleeping on the edge of the bed, as if there was a gap between us. I reached out to touch her shoulder just to feel that we were still together, but she jerked as if she'd been burned. "Can you at least not touch me?" she whispered irritably, almost angrily. At that moment, for the first time, I felt something like fear. Very quiet, very deep. It was as if someone inside me turned on a weak light and whispered, "Something is wrong." The following weeks, things got worse. Every conversation we had turned into an argument. Every question I ask is annoying. Every attempt to hug is a cold don't. And yet, I continued to justify her. I Googled articles about postpartum depression, read forums, asked for advice from friends, and hinted at the doctor. I did everything I could to convince myself. She hasn't changed, she's just tired, but one little thing still destroyed my confidence. It happened on Friday. The son was already asleep and the wife was sitting in the living room, buried in the phone. She usually immediately closed the screen, but this time I entered too quietly. She didn't hear it. At that moment, when I was passing by, a message flashed on the screen. "Are you sure he didn't notice anything?" I stopped. Flash. Panic. The ice is inside. But before I could ask, she turned to me and abruptly locked her phone. "Why are you walking so quietly?" she snapped irritably. "I'm sorry, I just wanted to pass by." She got up, came over to me, and put her hand on my shoulder, gently but somehow unnaturally. "Don't look at me like a suspicious husband, okay? I'm just texting with a friend." "Of course," I replied and smiled, but something broke inside me because the contact's name, which I managed to notice, was male. I lay down next to her that night, listened to her identical breathing word for word, and tried to convince myself that it didn't mean anything. But my thoughts kept replaying over and over again. "Are you sure he didn't notice anything?" Nothing. I was trying to sleep. It didn't work out. I stared at the ceiling until it got light outside the window. There was a feeling of heaviness in my chest, as if someone had placed a concrete slab on top of me. I was afraid to think further, but my brain wouldn't listen anymore. I felt that the woman I love was next to me. But next to me is a woman who is already somewhere far away with someone I'm afraid to even think about. The most painful thing was that I still didn't believe in cheating. I was so attached that I couldn't bear the thought of betrayal. So I decided to watch. I'll take a look. I'll understand. But the truth, which I was walking towards with small steps, turned out to be much scarier than just betrayal. The truth was where I least expected it, and one day she caught up with me. Friends, tell us what city you are from and how old you are. It's very interesting who's listening to us. And be sure to subscribe. The toughest things are ahead. After that night when I accidentally saw the message on her phone, are you sure he didn't notice anything? Something changed inside me. Not loud, not harsh, but quiet, like the crunch of thin ice underfoot. I continued to live as before, fulfilling my duties, helping with the child, trying to be a calm husband. But now every word, every movement, every look seemed too strained to me. I didn't like that I had turned into a man who was watching his own wife. But I didn't like being taken for a fool even more. For the first few days, I tried to convince myself that nothing was happening. I thought I was just tired, just overextended myself, just didn't get enough sleep. But the more I convinced myself of this, the more obvious the opposite became. The wife has changed. Not abruptly, but gradually, but in such a way that it was impossible not to notice. She began to leave the house more often than before. Sometimes she disappeared for an hour, sometimes for 3, sometimes for 5. I stopped by my mom's, she said. Let's go for a walk with a friend. I made an appointment with a doctor. I need to relax a little. It sounded different every time, but the meaning was the same. She went to a place where I wasn't. It wasn't even that bothered me, but the fact that she started coming back different, as if from somewhere where she feels good, where she's alive, smiling, feeling welcome. But not here, not with me. One day, her mother accidentally revealed what her wife was trying to hide. She came to visit her grandson. We drank tea in the kitchen, discussed the weather and shopping for the baby. Everything was calm until the mother-in-law suddenly said, "At least you were nearby today. Otherwise, you always go to that center that runs through the whole city." His wife looked up sharply. For a second, something like panic flashed through them. "Mom, you're confusing something," she said too quickly. "I don't go to any center. You got it all mixed up." "But you're—" the mother began. My wife interrupted. "Mom, please, let's not do that. You said yourself that you were tired." Her mother and I exchanged glances. The wife poured herself a cup of tea as if nothing had happened. "But I've already figured it out. She's lying. It doesn't matter about anything, about the place, about the reason, about where she was. The main thing is that he's lying." The confidence came a few days later, almost by accident. I was going to do my laundry, threw her jeans in the trash, checked the pockets, and found something that completely destroyed my peace of mind. A regular receipt, painfully ordinary, but the name of the restaurant is Mira. The date is last Thursday. A table for 2, 2 cocktails, dessert. That evening, she told me that she was with her mother and helped her cook dinner. A restaurant and a mother's dinner are 2 unmistakable things. I sat there, holding this check, and felt like everything was getting cold inside. This little piece of paper seemed to weigh a ton, but even then, I tried not to jump to conclusions ahead of time. You never know you never know why. Suddenly they spontaneously decided to go somewhere. But who did I tell this to? Her? For yourself? Or that scared man inside who was still hoping that the family wasn't bursting at the seams? The next day, I decided to do a little experiment. I told my wife, "Let's go out for dinner, just the 2 of us, just like before." She hadn't even thought about it. "No, I'm tired. Don't want," cold, sharply. It's like I suggested she move to another planet. I looked at her face and saw that she was lying without even thinking. That fatigue is just a cover. That she had no desire to be with me anymore. That she gets attention and warmth somewhere else. Another oddity appeared unexpectedly. My son was already over 3 months old. And suddenly, for the first time, I began to catch glances at myself. From relatives, acquaintances, even neighbors. Those sideways glances when people want to say something but are afraid. A couple of people talked. "He's so, well, different from you. He probably takes after his mom, doesn't he?" Eyes are generally a different color. I laughed and replied with jokes. But inside something was shrinking. It was an unpleasant feeling, like being slowly immersed in icy water. The cold was getting deeper, but I could still ignore it. More. The real crack formed in a moment that I will never forget. My wife was going to see a doctor. I offered to take her, as I had done before. She almost screamed, "Don't! I'll do it myself. I can do everything on my own. Don't follow me everywhere." And that was the strange thing. She didn't even look me in the eye. She was fussily packing her bag, nervously tugging at the lock of her jacket, as if she was afraid that I would see something superfluous. When she left, I said, "You know, I just want to help." She stopped for a second and she said, "You wouldn't understand that." And for the first time in a long time, her voice faltered. Not out of anger. It's from fear. From what? In front of whom? Why is it so important to her that I don't go with her? She's gone. And I was sitting on the couch and looking at the door through which she disappeared. This is the first time I've thought out loud. And if the baby isn't mine? The words hung in silence. Scary, forbidden ones, the kind that no husband should think about. I wanted to brush it off. I wanted to scold myself for that thought. But it has already sprouted, and she took root, and everything that had been happening in recent months suddenly came together. I didn't want to believe it, but now he couldn't turn away. And I understood, if I want to know the truth, I'm going to have to do something that destroys everything that's left of my old life. I'll have to do a test. even if the result is the scariest answer. I spent the night in a state somewhere between anger and disbelief. Taylor's message echoed through my head like a looping siren. You should talk to your wife. Not, everything's fine. Not, you got the wrong idea. Just that calm, smug, carefully chosen line like he already knew what I would find. By morning, I had made a decision. If Emily wanted to play games, I would no longer be the clueless husband waiting at home. I would confront the truth head on, but I needed more than suspicion. I needed facts, leverage, something she couldn't wiggle out of with teary excuses. I showered, shaved, dressed in clean clothes, and by 8:30 a.m. I was already driving toward the city. Not to Emily's office, no. I didn't need another receptionist looking at me like I was the confused relative who'd wandered in. I was going to see someone else, someone who, unfortunately for Emily, knew her almost as well as I did. Her best friend, Claire. Claire and I had always gotten along. She was blunt to the point of rude, but she valued honesty, and if someone betrayed her, she never hid it. She had been in our house 100 times, had watched Emily cry during stressful work weeks, had toasted at our anniversary dinners. If anyone noticed changes in Emily before I did, it would be her. When she opened the door, she blinked in surprise. "Wow, you look like you haven't slept," she said, pulling her robe tighter around her. "You okay?" "No," I said plainly. "I need to talk. It's important." Her expression immediately shifted from casual to serious. "Come in." I took a seat at her kitchen island and she made coffee without asking. Claire wasn't the type to offer comfort until she understood the problem. "Emily told your office I was her brother?" I began, watching the mug in her hand freeze midair. Her jaw tightened. "What?" "Yeah." I laid out everything. The receptionist, the awkward reactions, Taylor's message, her strange behavior over the past month. I didn't exaggerate or dramatize anything. I didn't need to. The truth was ridiculous enough. Claire slowly set the mug down. "Okay, this is worse than I thought." My heartbeat quickened. "You thought something was wrong?" she sighed, rubbing her temples. "She's been different, canceling plans with me, lying about little things. I asked her last week if everything was okay, and she snapped at me, said I was being invasive." Emily, calling Claire invasive was like calling water wet, but snapping at her was new. "Do you know if she's seeing someone?" I asked. Claire hesitated. The silence dragged long enough for me to feel the answer. "I don't have proof," she finally said, "but I know she's been going out after work, late, and she doesn't talk about you anymore, not the way she used to." A cold wave rolled through me. "What do you mean the way she used to?" Claire looked me straight in the eyes. "She used to brag about you, about how supportive you were, how proud she was of your business, how lucky she felt." Her voice dropped. "She hasn't said anything like that in months." I swallowed hard. "Who is it? Do you know?" "No," Claire said. "Then, but I can help you find out." By noon, we were sitting in her car across from Emily's office building. Claire had pulled her hair into a bun and wore sunglasses as if we were staking out a crime scene. I wasn't sure whether I should laugh or feel sick. We waited. People came and went, employees, delivery drivers, interns holding iced coffees. Every time someone vaguely resembling Taylor walked by, my jaw clenched. "She gets off at 5?" Claire asked. "Usually, but if she's meeting someone, she might leave early." At 4:17 p.m., my pulse spiked. Emily walked out the front door. She wasn't alone. The man beside her wasn't Taylor. He was older, mid-40s, maybe, tall, expensive suit, confident posture, charming smile. He touched her arm lightly as they stepped onto the sidewalk. Not romantic, but familiar. Familiar enough to twist something painfully inside me. "Is that her boss?" Claire whispered. "I don't know," I said, staring. Emily laughed at something he said. Not her polite, forced laugh she used with clients. Her real one, the bright, genuine laugh I hadn't heard in weeks. My fingers dug into the seat. They walked a block down the street to a cafe patio. Not a formal business meeting spot. Too casual. Too comfortable. Claire watched me carefully. "You want to get closer?" "No," I said, surprising both of us. "I want to watch." If I walked up now, she would have excuses, work talk, professional mentorship, misunderstanding. No, I needed something undeniable. I observed everything, the way she leaned forward when he spoke, the way he brushed a strand of hair off her shoulder, the way she didn't pull away. Every second was a nail sealing the truth. After 40 minutes, he stood up, placed a hand on her back, and guided her toward the street. They stopped beside a black Mercedes, then he hugged her. A long, intimate embrace. My breath caught. "That's not work," Claire said quietly. "Not even close." Emily slipped into the passenger seat. The man walked around to the driver's side and the car pulled away. I sat frozen, gripping the steering wheel with white knuckles. Claire exhaled slowly. "I'm so sorry, but I barely heard her." Because in that moment, something inside me shifted. The confusion burned away. The disbelief evaporated. The anger sharpened into calm, cold certainty. She was lying. She had been lying for weeks. And now she was caught. But I didn't want a screaming match, or a desperate confession, or a messy confrontation. No, I wanted the truth on my terms. That night, I didn't go home. I didn't text her. I didn't call. I wanted her to notice, to wonder, to feel something, anything other than the complacent confidence she carried around this mystery man. At 9:38 p.m., she finally called. I let it ring twice before picking up. "Hey," she said, trying to sound casual. "Where are you? You're not home." "I know," I replied calmly. "Okay? When are you coming back?" "Not sure." A pause. Is something wrong? So many answers spun through my head. I chose none of them. "We need to talk," I said. "Tomorrow." "About what?" "You'll see." Another silence, tight, nervous, unfamiliar. "Okay," she said softly. "Tomorrow." When I hung up, I sat alone in the dark, staring at the wall, replaying every detail of the afternoon. I didn't know everything yet. Not the identity of the man, not how long it had been going on, not what she had told him about me. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. Tomorrow she wouldn't be able to lie anymore. When I woke up the next day, the house seemed unusually quiet. No baby crying, no Emily's footsteps, not even her quiet sniffling, nothing. Just the silence that weighed on me more than any scream. I sat on the bed, trying to collect fragments of thoughts in my head, but everything was confused. Resentment, anger, despair, fear, emptiness. I didn't know where she was. Is she gone? Did she stay? And to be honest, I was afraid to find out. I got up, went downstairs and saw her. Emily was sitting in the kitchen. There was a suitcase nearby, already fully assembled. She was holding a mug of iced tea, hugging it with both hands, as if it could give her at least some warmth. When I entered, she started. "I thought—" "You're not coming," she whispered. "This is my house, Emily," I said calmly, even though everything was boiling inside. "I'll be back anyway." She lowered her eyes. "Do you want me to leave?" I looked at her tired face, at her red eyes, at her hands trembling with excitement, and I realized that I didn't want to make a decision in this state. There are too many emotions, too little common sense. "Not now," I said. "I need to understand. What's going on?" Emily nodded and wiped her eyes. "I'll tell you everything," she said. "If you want to." I sat down across from him. I wasn't sure what I wanted to hear, but I had to. "Tell me." She inhaled as if she were diving into cold water. "It was one time," Emily began, "with Colin. Before we found out that I was pregnant, I was—" She paused, searching for words. "I was in a terrible state. You and I were always fighting, and I felt useless. And he was just there." I clenched my fists. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. "I swear there was nothing else," she continued. "Neither before birth nor after. Nothing. And when I found out I was pregnant, I hoped the baby was yours. I believed in it." "You haven't checked," I said coldly. "I was afraid," she replied. "I was afraid I'd lose you. I was afraid that I would destroy everything. And when the baby was born, I looked at him and thought, he looks like you, so everything is fine." I tried to convince myself. I turned a blind eye to my doubts. I wanted the truth to be different. "And then?" I asked. "Then I started noticing that he was—" Emily paused. "He doesn't look like that. And every day I woke up thinking, what if? But every time you picked him up, when you smiled at him, I couldn't tell. I just couldn't. I closed my eyes because the pain was too acute." "I know it's my fault," she continued quietly. "I know I ruined everything. And I'm not asking you to forgive me. I want you to know that I really loved you. And I love you. And this child, it's not his fault. He didn't choose this." Then her voice broke. I was silent because at that moment I didn't know which was worse, her confession or my own powerlessness to change something. "Where is he?" I asked after a long pause. "At Mom's," Emily replied. "I thought it was better this way." I nodded. It was the right decision. We both needed space. "What do you want me to do?" "What is it?" she asked. I looked at the suitcase again. "Are you going to leave?" "If you tell me, I'll leave," Emily whispered. "I won't fight. I won't beg. I've done enough wrong." I took a deep breath. To leave or not to leave is not an emotional decision, Emily. And now I can't say anything that's honest. I paused, searching for words. "I feel empty." She nodded. "I can leave for a while," she offered, "until you decide." "Yes," I said. "That's probably right." Emily stood up. She went to the suitcase. She closed the zipper to the end. "I'll text you when I get there," she said softly. "And if you ever want to talk, I will." She walked past me. She opened the door. She stood there for a second as if hoping I'd stop her, but I didn't say a word, and she left. I was left in an empty house that now seemed too big, too quiet, too alien. I sat down on the living room floor, leaned on the sofa and covered my face with my hands. I haven't cried in years, but it was impossible to hold back the tears that day. They flowed on their own, from pain, betrayal, disappointment, and a lack of understanding of what to do next. I don't know how long I sat there. An hour? 2? Time has lost its meaning. When I finally got up, I picked up the phone. There are dozens of unread messages from friends, colleagues, and family on the screen, but one message stood out. From Emily. "We're here. The baby is fine. He's sleeping." I stared at the screen for a long time. My heart sank. Because no matter what the child was, I was with him from day one. I held him when he first opened his eyes. I haven't slept at night. I was there. And at some point I realized I do not know if I can become a father to him. Not legally, not officially, but in a human way. For real, and I couldn't make that decision in one day. I answered briefly, "Good, I need time," and sent it. Then he put down his phone, got up, and went outside. The cold air hit me in the face, but for the first time in many hours I felt a little better, because there is an unknown ahead, but there must be truth somewhere. My way, my decision, and whatever it is, it will be mine. And the past can't be changed.